And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here and around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining me today. So today is May the 13th, Friday the 13th, 2022. So in this week, we'll be talking about some interesting things happening. Nothing more so important than protecting our information, critical information, personal information, that by using the dreaded using password, having to create accounts, logins, and whatnot. But some of the tech companies is providing us a better alternative. Is it the right direction, or should we be concerned about this? So will be passwordless be the key to the future, or maybe not? So we'll talk about that. Next, we'll also be talking about how one of the biggest e-commerce, not Amazon, Shopify is acquiring a company, Deliverr, to supplement its logistics needs, fulfillment center. So we'll talk about that as well in a bit. Next is we'll be talking about how one of our neighboring countries, South Korea, has lifted the ban on wearing mask, the policy of wearing mask in public. But what's interesting is people still are wearing masks in public. So why is that so? So we'll talk about that. Next is we'll be talking about, since gaining access to your information is now a multi-billion industry for cyber attacks. Here in our country, in the Philippines, cyber attacks has been up, and that's not a good sign. And I think we're in the top 10 or top 3 in the world in terms of how much we pay for data that has been breached and locked out. So you have to pay a hefty amount. So what is to be done about that? And lastly, stay tuned for the last part when we talk about a very interesting concept of business. Creating a, that's nothing new about the product, meaning where you store your items when you're traveling from place to place, but how they presented it is kind of unique in a sense, which caught my attention. That's why I'm sharing it with everyone today. It's very expensive though. It's a $1,000 backpack. What type of backpack? Stay tuned for that part. So that's roughly around 50,000 pesos here in Philippine peso here. So anyway, so without further ado, so let's start. So as mentioned, so obviously for current generation in 2022, using technology to access multiple devices, services, social media platforms, and whatnot, to be able to access them, you typically have to register and log in your username and your passwords, whatnot, obviously to protect your information, which sad to say sometimes can be hacked if we're not careful. So tech companies like Amazon and Amazon, Apple, Google is offering a viable alternative here, meaning doing away with those logins. Is that to our betterment or to our detriment here? So we'll take a look at that. So in the article here at theverge.com, let's see here. So Apple, Google, and I forgot Microsoft will soon implement passwordless sign-in in all major platforms. Now, obviously, on the onset, that looks enticing, looks too good to be true, meaning if you were to log in, let's say in your smartphone, maybe in your laptops or even your desktop, and obviously smartphones now offering a fingerprint scanner, or using a pattern to be able to log in. But that would expedite it tremendously if they can, if it's connected to your different accounts to other services, as I mentioned earlier. Same goes whether you're using your laptop or even your desktop. But my primary concern is how secure will it be? Because obviously, as current state, even if we're still using passwords to protect our data devices or personal info at that, there's a big concern on, obviously phishing tactics that they call it, to engage individuals to spill out their information, uh, key information, and password, so to speak, to be able to lock out individuals, and in some major cases even big major organizations or multi-billion businesses here. So let's take a closer look here. So it mentions here the tech giants wants to roll out a FIDO passkey technology later this year. So FIDO meaning for what's the keyword here? I think there you go. So it's a fast identity online identification or authentication, is what they're offering here. So it's a quick service. I think I like the idea, making it quick, similar to how it used to be when you're logging into your smartphone. You have to type in the code. Obviously, it's very limited at that. But if you have a fingerprint scanner, it's easily doable. But obviously, the information there, it's not too valuable, in a sense that financial records, bank accounts, and whatnot is not indicated, because there's another layer you have to access by logging in again. But if they were to implement this worldwide, or not just worldwide, but in all aspects of our daily lives, yes, convenience is one of the key advantages here. But the downside is it's also another layer that they don't hackers don't have to worry and gain access also to our personal information, which is kind of a major concern, that if you think about it closely. Anyway, as mentioned here, on May 5th, World Password Day, maybe becoming a thing of the past here. Now, according to Apple, as mentioned, Google, Microsoft announced earlier that they've committed to building support for passwordless sign-in across all of the mobile, desktop, and even browser platforms that they control in the coming year, which is, gives me red flag. The fact that they have with those three companies, have so much control in our daily lives can be concerning, even if they have good intentions, because obviously at the end of the day, you want several layers of protection so that outsiders don't easily access our personal information. Even I was apprehensive, doing online banking, but obviously with the pandemic, that's thrown array. So you think you'd use a better alternative, which is doing online rather than do physical banking in your regular banks. But offering this passwordless authentication should be welcome, but and studied heavily as to how will this benefit outweigh the benefit versus the downside of doing away with passwords in the first place here. Anyway, it mentions here that passwordless authentication will come to all major devices, platforms in the not too distant future. Now, according to Kurtz Knight, Senior Director of Platform Marketing at Apple, it's as if they don't have any hidden agendas for doing that. Because, anyway, they go on to say, just as we design our products to be intuitive, capable, we also design them to be private and secure. But how secure is it? They have to explain it to us, because if with just one authentication, meaning fingerprint scanner in your phone, you'll be able to access your bank accounts, social media platforms, and whatnot in one fell swoop. But what if you're intoxicated, someone were to take advantage of you, meaning there's still ways to circumvent the process, thinking it's the same person. But obviously with the login, it has to be a same person, meaning that person who knows the password, who has to log in. Now that's why a lot of services have been offering safe passwords, which is another way to circumvent the login password, meaning you don't have to type in every time you have to log in, which is kind of cumbersome. But at the same time, it's a way to protect your accounts, in a sense here. I'm saying that it's not foolproof, but it's better than what's being offered now or sometime in the future here. Anyway, he goes on to mention working with the industry to establish new and more secure sign-in methods that offer better protection and eliminate the vulnerabilities of passwords is central to our commitment to building products that offer maximum security and a transparent user experience. Well, Again, I'm nothing against with that idea as long as they can prove. It's not as if those companies haven't done the service to their consumers by thinking only of themselves. So thinking of the consumers last or their customers last. So obviously we want to keep an eye on this one. And would they implement this in their own company? I mean, if they're implementing this in their own company, testing it so that if it's foolproof, then maybe I'm okay with it. But if their employees are not doing or using the same methods or using their features here, then I'll be apprehensive here. If your own employees internally are not using those technologies, why would I, who has no attachment in your companies here? Now, it goes on to mention here a passwordless login process will let users choose their phones as the main authentication device. So, meaning one device to rule them all, which is convenient, right? But it will authenticate for the different apps that you're using, the websites, and other digital services, which is the main issue here, especially for your financial information here, which is, I don't know if I'm that comfortable giving my information or accessing it easily, as easily as that. Think of it when you're trying to withdraw money from the bank. Obviously, you have to provide a slip, know the bank account, and you have to be physically there. And obviously, it's not foolproof, but obviously it adds another layer process that you have to be physically there to be able to withdraw the money, especially if it's a large sums of amount here. Anyway, Google mentions that unlocking the phone with whatever is set as default action, whether entering PIN, which is there's limitation because they use a small combination, 4 to 6 digits, which is not very secure if you think about it. Drawing pattern is another, it's easy if you're just accessing the phone, but I don't think it's a good idea if you're trying to unlock and it unlocks the rest of your applications here or access to other activities here, or even just using fingerprint unlock features here, which is, I think it makes sense for smartphone activities, so I can browse online, do watch videos and so forth. But it's a big of a risk on the consumer's part with just one easier step, whether it's entering pin, drawing a pattern, and fingerprint as mentioned. That's too big of a risk for many individuals to be caught in that. And obviously, if you're put in a very delicate situation that you're not aware that you've already unlocked it, and then people could just take your phone and then they could access it and do some nefarious activities, which could be disasters here. And will those companies be held liable if something were to go awry? And they will say, oops, we're hands off, you have to be responsible on this one. That's which goes back to my earlier point that obviously the key here is how secure is secure when they're mentioning this part. And they mention here that it will be enough to sign into web services without the need of to ever enter a password, which is convenience, yes, but reliable, secure, maybe. Now they're saying that they're using a unique cryptographic token called as a passkey that is shared between the phone and the website. But again, if you can hack the user by stealing their phone, by getting their fingerprint or whatever, then again, it's another layer that has been breached so that they can access the website or through any other services, which is never a good thing if you're a user. That scares me a lot. That should scare many of you when you think about this. That's why for all the downsides of doing traditional methods, whether it's through banking, accessing your social media platforms, I like convenience, but obviously the vulnerability of access of your information is important to me, hopefully important to everyone as well here. Anyway, it mentions here that making logins is contingent on a physical device, and the idea is that users will simultaneously benefit from simplicity and security. Yeah, simplicity I understand, but I don't know about security here, because the physical device, once it's breached, let's say someone were to steal your phone and we're able to hack your PIN code, or maybe get your fingerprint for whatever reason, then it's easier for other people or bad actors to take advantage. And for all of its convenience per se, I don't know, you can justify streamlining your services in just one fell swoop. Now, maybe if they're using I don't know, maybe it's still not yet foolproof, but using biometrics more than just fingerprint, maybe retina scan, or maybe voice activation is another one, or maybe all of those combination, then I'd be more inclined to use those services rather than just very simple, and you would say outdated ones, because obviously I don't see banks offering fingerprint scan for withdrawing amount, money in the banks, or other critical functions in bank services as whatnot. Now, what's interesting, Microsoft's Vice President for Security, Compliance, Identity, and Privacy, Vasu Jackal, Microsoft Vice President. Yeah, he mentions that with passkey on your mobile device, you are able to sign into an app service nearly any device, regardless of platform or browser the device is in. Yeah, again, the convenience is being mentioned here or highlighted tremendously, but what's not being mentioned is the downside of using such techniques here. And unless they can sort those things out and iron it out first, maybe test with their employees, test it themselves. If high government officials would use those type of authentication, would it be sufficient for protection of your data? Then I might consider using it for mass consumption here. But until the day comes, I'll be pretty apprehensive about this, but we'll see. And anyway, so for our next topic, in terms of e-commerce platform, so we have Shopify here is trying to solidify its position as it competes with Amazon here by closing a deal with its recent acquisition of an e-commerce fulfillment startup company, the name Deliverr, in a 2.1 billion deal. So 2.1, doesn't sound a lot. Think about it nowadays, but still pretty big in terms of a lot of zeros behind it. Anyway, so what does this mean for the company? Now, it mentions here that the company will be locking a huge deal with the company, as mentioned. So their goal is to do end-to-end logistics, and obviously, as a e-commerce platform, it's not just about selling a product, but also from the time you made an order to the time it reaches the consumer or the buyer themselves. And obviously, Shopify is just a platform per se, a website or a platform as mentioned, but how it gets delivered quickly in a timely manner is the important part, and which I think Amazon has made a killing about it, and especially offering the same day delivery or 1 day delivery here. Now, in this case, the company will cater more to millions of merchants all over the world, according to Shopify founder Toby Looked. Okay. So they mention here, acquire a new startup comes with goals. They mentioned that's why the founder believes that it will be beneficial for the entire organization. The Deliverr will provide a huge help for several businesses through its logistics platform here. And he goes on to mention that our goal is not only level the playing field for independent businesses, which I think it's important. Amazon has been doing a terrible job on that part. That's why competition is important. But built in their favor, turning their size and agility into their superpower, according to Mr. Luke here, according to their blog post here. Now, obviously, improving inventory management is one of the key here. So, obviously, having bigger access to your network, so you can provide a better service, a much faster service, a reliable service is important here. And this is where the company Deliverr comes to the picture here, and they'll be offering a fulfillment network, or SFN, or Shopify Fulfillment Network, which lets merchants comply with pending orders. So again, solidifying the logistic network from end to end here. So from the business side all the way to the consumer side here. What's interesting here, it's not only the only thing that Deliverr will bring to the e-commerce platform. It mentions that the company Shopify can take advantage of the Shop Promise service here, which focuses more on the customers. And obviously, at the end of the day, if the customers are not satisfied, Customer repeatability is one of the key metrics that a lot of companies look at if consumers or customers are making another purchase because of their tremendous experience in the platform here. So it mentions it will give them an option to have a 2-day or next day delivery. In addition, other perks that they can receive includes return, storage, and freight expansions and inventory preparation. So again, very promising here. Despite shares of Shopify has plummeted in the recent month, as much as 13%. Now, obviously, the stock market can have its ebb and flows regarding current situation, but what's important is for Shopify is continue to trudge along to be able to compete with the big giants like Amazon here. So good luck to Shopify. Hopefully they'll grow into a bigger, more competitive company versus Amazon here. Anyway, next is we'll be talking about an interesting development in particular in South Korea that one would think that if we're still in the pandemic of sorts, but we're now 2 years removed, and obviously one of the key issues is not just the vaccine, but obviously having to wear face masks, which is kind of cumbersome, especially in a humid place like here in the Philippines. In South Korea, on the other hand, the government has already lifted the mandate of wearing masks. But the interesting part is the people or the South Koreans themselves decided not to stop doing it. Now, there are 2 cases that was mentioned here, which we'll talk about in a bit here. So according to insiders.com, South Koreans are still wearing their masks even the lifting of the mandate here. So as you can see here, obviously it kind of looks weird if I'm looking at current public events where people are not wearing masks. Now, obviously, in certain countries, certain cultures, wearing masks is important. For others, hey, if you're vaccinated, it should be your choice whether to wear a mask or not. But for South Koreans, they have a different mindset here. So let's read further here. So it mentions could be that the society is more aesthetics obsessed, meaning looks obsessed society. So it gives them a way to not to look at their best every day since you're wearing a mask. Another is, I think it's more reasonable, has something to do with showing respect with other people. And I think this is what I've seen. I was lucky enough to visit Japan before the pandemic. And, first time I saw people in public wearing masks for no apparent reason. And that got me thinking, now, what's the rationale here? Now, obviously, in Japan, it's more cooler here, cooler there. So it makes sense to wear masks to protect from, wind chill, especially if you're walking briskly. But another is, they're very considerate in terms of if you're not feeling well, if you have a cold or flu, and you're still going to work, so you want to cover your face so you don't, disrupt other people, and you're mindful that other people don't catch it, especially flu and so forth. Even more so now with the COVID-19 virus. So it makes sense to wear the mask, especially in Asian countries here. So maybe in your country it's not necessarily, but at least having that option, not being required by law, is important. So if I'm not comfortable, if you're not comfortable, we wear masks together. And if people are comfortable not wearing masks, I'm comfortable wearing masks, it should be an option either way. And let the citizens decide which is the better route here. As long as if the majority of the population has been vaccinated, then it should be okay. It should give confidence to their fellow citizens here. Anyway, to dig deeper, so according to one of the South Koreans, are still choosing to keep their masks firmly, as mentioned. So I haven't been sick in the last 2 years, and I don't miss it. I'd rather keep my mask on, especially when there are so many people out and about, according to Kim So-young, working in financial securities, which, it's a reasonable logic in terms of why you should wear mask still. And another thing that he mentions is COVID-19 didn't suddenly just go away, which is another key thing here. And obviously, and if this pandemic happened 2 years ago, it's more than likely sometime in the near future. We don't know when. It's possible to happen again, and again, we'll go through the same process here. But obviously, hopefully, we can combat this much earlier, contain this much better, and have lesser fatalities in the future here. And obviously compare that to other nations who have celebrated of easing of mask requirements. In particular, the Americans cheered and chucked their face mask mid-flight last month after finding out a federal judge had scrapped a mask mandate of 4 planes entry. Now, I think in public places, I understand that. Even in but in close confined space, I don't know if I'm comfortable. I'd rather wear a face mask, but it shouldn't be mandated by law anymore. So I think if you're vaccinated, if you're not yet comfortable, you should have the option to wear or not to wear it, and be responsible about it. But obviously, in certain aspects, let's say in your work, especially if you're doing physical work, you want to be able to remove it and do a proper job. But if you're working in the office, maybe wearing a mask is, not so bad. Uh, but again, I think at the end of the day, for for their other reasons is, they're thinking it's more convenient wearing a face mask because especially for ladies, you don't have to put on full makeup, which is kind of can be a hassle, especially when you wake up early in the morning before you go to work or even go to school. And wearing a mask which covers practically half of your face, and if you don't need to remove it during the day, then it's a convenient. But I think I tend to gravitate towards the notion that the Koreans social respect, that they call it, which is, I don't know, it's spelled Yewi or Yewi. I don't know how it's pronounced, meaning more being respectful of other people's, or being responsible, being considerate with other people, especially if you're in public place. Now obviously if you're at your homes personally with your family, you're safe, you're vaccinated, you're comfortable. But in public, you don't know. Even if they're not, if you think they're vaccinated, you don't know if they have asymptomatics. If they're carrier, you'll never know. That's why you'd rather be safe than sorry in that case. So they mentioned that the key here is, the main issue is to pull off a mask in a pandemic and then potentially spread the infection would be a potential loss of face situation, which is, it's not just showing face, but can be catastrophic. Worst case, people die. We don't want it to happen. And whatever your preference is, wearing mask or not wearing mask, if you're vaccinated, you're more confident. I'm more confident. So eventually, I think we'll move on to a phase where we don't have to wear face masks anymore, and we'll go back to our pre-normal pandemic, I don't know, situation. But I highly doubt it because things have changed permanently in a sense, and I don't know if we can go back to that situation there. Anyway, so let's continue. Anyway, continuing with our next topic. So in this case, we're talking about earlier about passwords, right? And hacking of our information, whether at the personal level or even in an organizational level, is very problematic because hacking, steals your account, sells it, or even locks you out. So you have to pay a ransom to be able to gain access towards it. And sad case here, here in the Philippines, we have one of the worst protections in the world. And as noted by the article here at Rappler.com, that 69% of organizations experienced ransomware in 2021 alone. So that's never a good sign. So more than half of businesses or organizations in the country were attacked or experienced ransomware vulnerabilities, which is never a good thing here. And obviously, understanding, learning more about how cyber attacks works and how to protect oneself is important, because obviously one cyber attacks, just need to find one opening to be able to crack in your database. But in our organization, the more people that you have, the more vulnerabilities that you can have. So it takes a lot of work to be able to protect your informations here. Anyway, so let's take a closer look here. So as mentioned, 69% figure is higher than the 42% score in 2020. So it's getting higher, meaning a lot of hacking has been growing, unless the government steps in to find a way to eliminate, to mitigate that. Then all private firms are left to fend for themselves. And what's interesting here is the average ransom payment has doubled to almost $2 million. So that's roughly 100 million pesos in a year. So obviously that number is going to increase if those hackers deem that they're vulnerable and they have done anything. They'll keep on doing this until organizations realize that maybe we need to protect ourselves, not just physically but virtually from hackers externally here. Now, the cybersecurity firm Sophos mentioned that 60% of organization it served in the Philippines experience a cyber attack, or cyber attacks that encrypt systems and files for ransom, which is a common method that they do to be able to make money out of it. And obviously, if you're a company that relies on your data, especially imagine if you're a banking services, whether it's BPI, BDO, or Metrobank and so forth, and they were able to hack your system and lock out files, tons, millions and millions of files regarding your depositors here, and share those informations, then that would be a disaster in the making here. That's why having a passwordless future is good. It's an ideal idea. It's a good idea in the first place, but with what we're talking about here, it makes it easier for external parties to hack into our system and get our information as well. Anyway, it mentions here that out of the 5,600 IT professionals in mid-sized organization across 31 countries from January to February of 2022, survey also vendor agnostic, meaning the survey was not limited to organizations. Anyway, there were 150 respondents in the Philippines. So the results were 69%, slightly higher than the global average, which is 66. The fact that it's more than half is pretty alarming already. And it's even higher than compared to the year before. And it also mentions that 42% of Philippine firms reported being hit by ransomware. That's the one that's actually reported. What we don't know is those other companies that's not reported, especially for small enterprises as well. And that was significantly higher compared to the year before, which was only at around 30%, which shows that ransomware has been growing steadily. So this growing steadily is never a good thing. It's always a bad thing, especially for businesses. And if it can affect big businesses, can trickle down to medium and small and even individuals like us. That's why we have to be vigilant and find ways to combat this. Otherwise, it can have severe consequences, not just for the businesses, but for our economy as well here. And what's interesting, 15 other countries also scored higher in the global average. You have Austria and Australia being two of the top highest percentage scores at 80 to 84. Not good. Anyway, so going back to the average ransom payment, the Philippine organizations were hit by almost 2 million, as I mentioned, which is pretty significant. So that's higher than what it accrued over last year. And what's interesting here, the Philippines is the third highest in terms of average payment in 2021, followed by Netherlands with 2 million and Japan by 4 million. Now, you may notice that Philippines is nowhere near close to where Netherlands is currently as a nation, even Japan. So it tells you how vulnerable and paltry our protection is currently, and we need to do a better job of protecting those organizations. Otherwise, could hamper our growth as a nation. And obviously, it's costing businesses not just the money per se, but also has other repercussions in terms of uh, you know uh, maybe not enough resources spent on manpower to get the right person to be able to protect the firm's in data infrastructure, or maybe not the resources to have the physical infrastructure to protect the databases of those companies as mentioned. And it's going to continue to grow, and obviously if this trends continue to grow, it will embolden those hackers to do even more hunting until someone or something is going to stop them, which is not anytime soon here. Anyway, for our last story for this week's episode, as promised earlier, have you considered what product are they selling and how is this unique? A type of bag that's costing you $1,000. So this is not a high end bag like Louis Vuitton or Hermes that they're selling here. The cost is very simple. Now we're talking here in particular in somewhere in Japan. If you're familiar with the animal of cats, there are a lot of animal cat lovers in the world. So much so that they considered making a bag, turning it into a cat. Think about that. How ludicrous is the idea? But hey, those unique ideas is making whoever created those bags a lot of money here. So let's take a closer look here. Anyway, in insider.com, it mentions people on Twitter in Japan in particular are going nuts over a handcrafted $1,000 cat backpack that looks just like a real cat. And just look at the picture, especially the eyes. I don't know, is the eyes real from the cat or is just a fake one? But anyway, if you look at the whole design of the bag, it's look pristine, it's white, and it looks lifelike. And you know apart from the straps that tells you it's not an actual cat, it's only a bag. So let's take a closer look here. And you can see the photo here. You can move the appendages of the bag here. So and if you look closely, you don't see the seams here. So you don't notice that it's a bag or a doll of sorts that you can manipulate. Anyway, so a life-size cat backpack made of faux fur is making waves in Twitter in Japan. So the bags are hand sewn by Miho Katsumi, a Japanese housewife based in Fukui Prefecture. So it's selling for $1,000, which is not cheap. Okay. So as mentioned, the bag is hand sewn, featuring cats with pink paw pads, huge gleaming eyes, and the eyes, I think it's what makes it real lifelike, so to speak, and fairy tales. So Katsumi has made true to life replicas of Persian, Munchkin, and even British short hair cats. So the bags are usually made of faux fur, which Katsumi dyes herself. Making the bags is no easy feat. And what's interesting here is that each bag takes 1 to 3 months to make. So it's a very laborious process. But what's interesting here is there's a big demand for her products, as you will notice in a bit here. So as you can see here, the look of the bag is looks real cat like from afar, and if you're not looking closely, you would notice, why is that person strapping a cat at their back? So obviously you don't notice the zipper in the front or the back of the cat, but looking at the way it's being presented, you wouldn't notice it right away here. So it looks pristine, so it looks tremendous. Obviously the color white could be problematic. It's how are you going to maintain its what do you call this maintain its color or cleanliness here. Anyway, let's see here. So again, you can see photos of it being displayed here as well. And, it does look great. I mean, for me personally, I'm not a cat lover, but, looking at the product, that how it's being presented, it's looking tremendous here. And what's interesting here, she mentions that uh the creation will have to wait because she's got so many orders from last year that she's not accepting new orders until further notice. Hey, there's a lot of cat lovers as well as dog lovers as well here, and if you make a tremendous product, people will buy it in droves, whether it's cheap or expensive in this case here. So as of today, Katsumi has already sold over 70 creations. Uh, and what's interesting here is she also offers other types of bags, other products as well. So not only does she sell bags, she backpacks, she also sells bags. So she also sells cat purses and mufflers. So it will be interesting to see how long will this be a fad, or will this be a long-term, what I call this, long-term fascination from people. And who knows, maybe people from abroad will be interested to buy her product as well. Maybe she could turn it into an online business as well. Who knows? But we'll see here. Anyway, I think that's about it for this week's discussion. Hopefully, you find those topics interesting and enjoyable. We've already reached 900 subscribers here, so thank you for supporting the channel. Keep on those subs growing and share the good word of what we're trying to accomplish here. Focus on business, discussing interesting topics. Some controversial, some not so controversial, but interesting nonetheless. So let's have this discussion here. Anyway, all of the topics here is posted in the links in the description below, so you can read the full article if you're interested in those sort of things. As always, don't forget to hit the like and share button so more people can see the content. Hopefully, we can get to 1,000 very near or very soon. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you again next week, same time, same channel. As always, take care. Bye.